It's Sue Shinamaya.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Where are you now?
That sounds like the Truman Show. Sounds good. How are you in lockdown Portland, lockdown Oregon, lockdown USA?
Oh, lockdown USA. It's very interesting. I didn't think that after my son went to college, we would go back to what I call, we went from empty nester to refilled nester. I don't know if I'm just making that up, but yeah, he is doing great. His generation seems to be sort of thriving in this online
Yeah.
schooling environment in a way I don't know that I would have. They manage their social situations afterwards, and they get on this thing called Discord and they talk to each other and play games just as they were. So he seems to be doing well, which means that the rest of us are doing okay also. Everything moving to an online world.
Sounds good. The kids are all right. Good. So
The
today
kids
we're
are all
gonna
right.
we're gonna skim in a cultural helicopter across Japan and the USA.
Hmm.
Japan, I believe they have a special relationship with hygiene that not all of our viewers will share, said Matthew with a slightly judgmental look. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it's been an interesting trend to watch because, of course, I was in Japan last fall and I was there last spring as well. And in Japan, there is a tendency to really be hygienic. And you go into most buildings, or certainly into anybody's home, you take off your shoes, and washing your hands frequently is very common there. And what I find to be interesting is about their tendency to wear a mask. Now, I remember years ago when I was teaching in Japan, and some of my students would show up and they would be wearing masks, and if you ask them why are you wearing a mask, and I would assume that this because they don't want to get sick or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they would
yeah.
almost always without fail say it's because I don't want to give my sickness to somebody else. So there's a strong cultural tradition around an other centric-ness and not wanting to spread something, but also it's very customary to wear a mask. Interesting point. I think that you and I have discussed before about kind of the historical
Yeah, yeah,
part of
yeah, yeah.
their country about the cedar trees. In World War II, they cut down all of the trees and used them for the war effort, of course, and they replanted them with cedar trees. And it turns out that something like 90% of Japanese are very allergic to cedar pollen. And so in any given March or April, March, whatever, you'll see about 60 to 70, 80% of the people wearing a mask as just a matter of course to prevent them from getting an illness. They would prefer to have an external solution, an external
Yep, yep,
medical
yep.
solution, rather than taking pills or putting something in their system. So it's part of the way that they operate.
Love it. And it's a point well made. I'll summarize it in 1 minute. I think we all, when we first saw Asian people in our airport, thought how rude, they don't want to catch our diseases. It's the exact opposite. They are protecting the host, and I use that word advisedly, the home country team. Thank you. So, is there a
Yes.
special
Mm-hmm.
relationship between the average Japanese person and science?
Oh, yes, and it's sort of from a cultural perspective, also, they have relied on science in many cases. They have a great deal of reverence, I've noticed over the years, for example, their engineers or their top scientists. If somebody wins the Nobel Peace Prize in Japan, they're on the news every night and they show
Nice.
them and they show their accolades, and it becomes it's almost like a cult, if you will. And they're quite interested and passionate about it. And the thing I've noticed throughout this pandemic, or even earlier on, following Japanese TV, is there tended to be within their NHK is kind of their national broadcasting, and on any given NHK program, they might show some study that had been done years ago, or showing the microdroplets, this incredible filming technique using these microdroplets that you can see in the air when the fellow is just speaking. And of course, that would create some awareness of, indeed, I am not safe from whatever's in the air, and just a more information from science as part of their entertainment norm.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so they really will follow that because they will trust their doctors. They don't question their doctors or question the science of it as other countries might.
So has that reverence for science, and I love it, the sort of the everyday presence of science has an effect on the treatment or the policies around the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. In a sense that it does, and kind of accompanied by both of those things, the general hygiene and the science,
Yeah,
accompanied by a cultural proclivity towards other centric-ness, and
yeah,
what are
yeah,
other
yeah.
people doing, and if other people are doing it, then probably I'll do it too. There has not been any tradition in Japanese workplace about working remotely, working from home. To speak of, I'm certainly some companies have tried it, and they've tried to do this, but there's still a lot of people commuting, and they're trying to keep their social distance. Very hard to do in a place like Tokyo where everybody's on top of each other. But an attempt at that, because it's what everybody is doing. They relaxed their norms a bit over when they had the cherry blossom season, the sakura, and people did want to get out and see those, and also people coming back from various spring vacations and so on. They simply, by the way, Japan, they simply shut down their schools early for their spring break and extended the spring break to 4 weeks from the usual 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting to note is that they start their school year on April 1st. The whole fiscal year, et cetera, everything starts from April 1st. So part of it is the magic of their timing, and they were able to just kind of put everything on hold for a bit. Unfortunately, they got a little bit relaxed, and now they're going to have to go back to some other system of making sure that everybody stays home. And it's not that easy to do in any culture, but a little easier to do when people tend to be cooperative, believe the science, and believe very strongly in hygiene for everything.